We're in peace. We're in the December '05 turn. So far, the French invasion has pretty much almost taken Austria out. There are Russian forces available, but they're outnumbered by the French. They're outfought by the French. It's not going to work. Meanwhile, over in Spain, Portugal has fallen. This is something ugly that happens in this game all the time. Happens in Empires in Arms too, relatively easily. The truth of the matter is, Portugal is just easy to take on paper. The partisans and the militia and all that are there, but Spain can do it without much cost. The other major thing that's going on is the naval war, where the French and English have had a couple of clashes. The French got control of the North Sea for a while, but didn't have a leader to cross. And then Nelson managed to catch the French fleet, and basically both fleets are battered into inability to fight. The French have a hard time rebuilding their fleet. I mean, both sides have a hard time rebuilding their fleet. But the English managed to capture a ship, which makes up for the one that they lost, I think. They ended up like a ship behind what they started with. Well, now that's a two-ship swing, one off the French and one gained by them. Last turn we had an unseasonably good weather for a November because I forgot to roll the dice. It's because the colors are just too muted. It didn't highlight to me that it should be winter, but I also completely forgot that I'm using the optional weather rules, which I have to, of course, find. So let's see. I mean, shit happens, right? Let's see where we get here. It's December. The base die roll is at 2. It's going to be cold everywhere. Now, cold increases attrition by 1. This is the normal winter effect. Something I forgot about. There's a Portuguese transport here. It fled. But Portugal is no longer in the war as an ally. I think what happens, it's not absolutely clear. Actually, I think it is actually clear. I think this just goes away. And if there's another Portuguese fleet kicking around, that too would go away. Because you can't build miners. You can't build their fleets. So like Spain wouldn't be able to build the Portuguese fleet. What I mean here is Spain doesn't have it in their countermix. The English could build the Portuguese fleet. I know I have to be more specific because I shorthand things like that, and it's not good. I'm trying to figure out the French fleets. I was going to go hunt that because that was relatively safe, but actually it's not because Nelson's still here with this fleet. And if I pull these units out that are damaged, and I think I'm allowed to intercept with them even though they're under repair. Well, certainly I can with the English because they can repair at sea even. But if it were like a French or Spanish force, I think I could still intercept with it, but I would break the rebuild, the repair costs. So, yeah, that's not particularly good. But I'm left with kind of the feeling of, yeah, I can't really afford to engage with my navies. Now, do I, I keep ignoring the Lloyds, but I'm not trying to do anything with it, with the French. I'm trying to win the naval war rather than just commerce raid. I think the commerce raiding is, I don't know. Again, it's a nifty little bit of chrome to the game. I don't think it's at all necessary. And it strikes me that it's going to be really, really ineffectual. It's going to be a way to lose the French fleet. Even if you don't have much French fleet left, you probably don't want to do it. It just seems too risky because the English can sail out and deal with you if you don't have much fleet. If you have a large fleet, well, you probably want to be contesting the European naval theater and not be squirming away over there, which is sort of the opposite of the reality. The reality was there was a pretty hefty reason. Like, commerce rating actually worked pretty well because the idea was faster little ships could perform it. Things like frigates and stuff. And you would have privateers assigned and whatnot. I don't know so much in this era, certainly in an earlier era. And it's like, if it's not just ships that are slipping around sneaking, it's kind of hard. And it doesn't seem that it's going to be all that sneaky. I don't remember what we have here. MP is moving, IM is going to be the interception rating. And there isn't one here. How about that? Yeah. I also don't know, like, these circles have a +1 on them, just like they do out here. But there's not really a C zone to sit in. That's not in the +1. So I don't know what the hell to do about that. Again, it's part of the new game, part of the Chrome, like Ireland. It's like, fuck, it really doesn't need to be there. The old game was good enough. The only thing I'm really intrigued by is the newer victory conditions. Do they do something right? And you know, I'm not so sure. It's just such a clunky Byzantine mechanism with all this, you know, everything scripted all over the place. It avoids the silliness that the old game could get you into. Anyway, I think I'm trying to avoid playing, actually. Here's the cost and attrition. This is on just a 3-die roll, but you know, forces are kind of conglomerated, and there are I don't know. I'm losing a lot of miners on purpose because they're less valuable units, but that creates problems. Like, trying to hunt through there. Again, the shadows in the counter trade and whatnot, in conjunction with these counters that are very hard to read and see which nation something is. Again, the lettering is smaller than it was in the original because of the stupid flag and because of the stupid infantry or cavalry graphic being there. Not graphic, but the letter being there. You know, like, yeah, I get it. The Cossacks and Guards should have letters, and that makes them special. The choices in this new version just make the counters less usable. Just like the map is less usable. Pretty, less usable. The counters are prettier, they're less usable. Got into one of those signs where I know I fucked something up. This leader D over here, he moved up next to Austrian Bennigsen there. He has no troops with him. I don't know who he's supposed to be. I'm pretty sure he had troops. They may have shifted among the leaders. It's just, I don't know. I'm definitely having issues here. Now, I also don't know how I make Austria surrender, which I gotta look up. As is usual. Yeah, the surrenders in here, or are they only in my old book? France, Austria. The rules for Austria here, rules for Austria here. What the hell? Yeah, I don't know how Austria's conquered. Maybe it's in the original. Maybe it's in the base rule book, not the original rules. But I seem to think it's in the campaign. Indeed, it is in the campaign rules. Now here, all of a state's production cities are conquered. That means I have to take Prague now. But I seem to remember there was something like Austria can surrender on easier terms if they do it early, with just Vienna falling. I don't know where I would find that if I did. Like, piece of Pressburg. Move my way back up to Boulogne, just in case an opportunity arises again. Try to keep the English honest back there. Other forces just moving north, and they actually probably should be trying to grab Dalmatia. Kind of was going in different directions. He was trying to get into this hex. Didn't make it. We do have a battle here. That's going to be, I think, Soule there, trying to hit Hiller and make him pay. We've got a battle here that I had Bernadotte, trying to take Prague, because that's required for, we have to take Vienna, Prague, and Budapest. We already have Innsbruck. Napoleon left leader A here. His intention is to do that kind of special maneuver, try to schwack Kutuzov. That throws him back into here, but which is weird. It should be something else. Davout's going to go after whoever's there, which is probably Ferdinand or something. Napoleon overran some Cossacks here. That slew of battles, and again, you know, if you don't play with the withdrawal chit, with the rule with the withdrawals, the battles just aren't that decisive. I did 3 hits to the Kutuzov's army. They withdrew into Vienna. We have a siege here as well. Neither of them succeeded. These are our total losses for the turn. It just, you know, I really like the combat chits because they create a very different kind of combat. Ooh, we got friends out there. It's raining pretty hard. I mean, not real hard, but pretty hard for deer to be out. And usually they don't want to be out in the rain. I don't know why. I mean, I don't want to be out in the rain, but anyway. I mean, it's hard enough that they're going to get really wet, right? And they generally hide under the trees when it's raining like this. Maybe they decided they were too wet anyway, or just really needed to eat. Anyway, we had a series of different battles happening, and nothing too exciting. I had to leave this guy behind so that I still have supply lines. I've got actually some risk of my supply lines being cut back here. I might see the Austrians try to do something along those lines. Right now, we're going to be hitting into the anti-French player segment. Put a couple of red dice for that. I'm not really, I'm definitely, you know, going to break, but I'm considering sleeping. I have to hit the bank again this week, but it's so rainy today, tomorrow, whatever. Pass it with the double-sided counters. You put them in the force pool, they flip over. This is, you know, I remembered that game, the old War and Peace, being relatively easy to deal with the force pool compared certainly to this, but also to other games that had it, things like Clash of Monarchs and stuff that then I'm like, you know what? It's the double-sided counters. Those single-sided counters were a lot easier to cope with in a forced pull. Yeah, you got to make change and everything a little bit more a little bit more often, but as long as the forced pulls are close to you, it's not that big a deal. Well, here it is. Barely, just a few minutes into Tuesday, and my internet went down. I don't know if it's still down. Yeah, it's still flashing like it's down. Which convinced me to stop neglecting the game. I'm having a hard time playing this one. And I actually think the easiest thing would be to break out the old version, set everything up on there instead, and just say fuck it with this new version. It just makes life harder. Anyway, let's get on with the Coalition's turn. I always want to call them the Alliance. But, I mean, they are an alliance, but the official term, what is this, the Third Coalition? I don't know. Just noticed something kind of interesting. The turn sequence of play, anti-French is just equivalent. Campaign sequence of play, anti-French is just equivalent. But there are differences here. I don't remember typhus. I don't remember that rule. That, you have to be in like Russia for it to happen. Okay. So there are some differences in it. Fair enough. I just thought it was really odd that this is the campaign sequence of play here, and it says it's equivalent to this, but this blows things up into enough detail that they have to express the differences, I guess. Anyway, I got to figure out the naval aspect for the Brits primarily. We're just going to blockade that French fleet. We have a much larger fleet here, so now it becomes picking around the edges for the French to get out. Might as well roll the attrition and see how bad it is. Hey, that can't be bad. My production, and the Brits repaired their entire navy. They had a couple of spare points, etc. On the track, so that's cool for them. Hey, look here, and this is from the old game. They just reproduced, and this is why it's weird. Like, this doesn't match the map, but I think this is definitive. When I look in the rules, the things on the map that are wrong or not wrong in the rules or whatever. But there's an at-war box here. But now there are at-war boxes actually on the board, just because the board is so huge and has so many little slices, they can find room for them. But it is kind of funny that they reproduced the information on the old one. I don't know. I don't find this that terrible, except for very slick paper. Well, not paper, but very slick stock here with very slick counters, which is causing issues over here. As opposed to the, again, with the old system, the stock had no slickness at all. It was a matte stock with some definite grain to it, you could feel. And the counters themselves weren't slick in quite the same way. Yeah, the tops of the counters were slick. The one problem I did have with the old game was that the glue on the counters separated. And so this was one of a very few games, and maybe because I played it a lot compared to other Avalon Hill games of its period, where the counters actually separated, and like the information part of the counter would come off of the other thing. It wasn't actually printed on the counter. It was like a sheet was printed before. I don't think any of their other games that I can recall had that issue at all, though. And I actually don't think it's just a matter of that this was a game that I played a fair amount. Because there were other Avalon Hill games from this period that I did play a decent amount. Third Reich comes to mind, and it definitely didn't happen there. Squad leader stuff, it didn't happen to. Not that I played it a lot, but I think the guy who owned it before me did. I lost my Third Reich to him. In terms of like value of what I have, obviously the squad leader stuff is worth more than a third edition of Third Reich, but I still regretted it to a great deal. I think I have I have a third edition now. I thought I had a second edition. I went and picked that up used because I wanted the original. Sometimes I don't want to play a World at War or the A3R type stuff, at least supposedly. Again, for the same reason that I like this, it's a smaller footprint of a game, It's not as pretty. Of course, A3R does not have the problems that this has in terms of components being unreadable or something along those lines. Anyway, there I go delaying again. We got production. I guess it's time to move some pieces. I don't think there's much the coalition can really do. It's really hard to mount an offensive when you're on your heels this hard. The victory conditions into account before I do anything here, because I'm thinking Russia may not want to lose more units in this war. And they actually have a prerequisite that Austria has to lose a couple of wars. They have to surrender a couple of times for Russia to win even a marginal victory. So, gosh, maybe I shouldn't be supporting them this hard. Of course, if France has too easy a time, they will end up going against Russia. And France's victory conditions involve them beating Russia. I think they only get a draw by holding Paris anymore, which was a big problem with the original game. Again, I think the victory conditions, I think they go too extreme in this one, but I think some little tinkering taken from this. Ideas like France can only get a draw if they hold Paris at the end of the game feels about right. The problem is the issue of Napoleon coming back, and that France could actually, France was able to win the game in the original version with Napoleon not, returning. And that feels a little wrong. But on the other hand, hey, if France gained power, it would make sense. Anyway, where am I? I'm trying to move units. Sure. I had to reload my pipe. So I checked my modem. It was still out. So I did something. I unplugged it, reset it, basically. And I don't know. That doesn't seem to ever work here. I used to work a lot in Phoenix. May have a new modem here. I don't remember. I know I had to upgrade my hardware at one point or another, but for the modem itself. But when it goes out, it doesn't seem like in Phoenix, whatever company I had, I don't think it was the same one. I'm essentially on Comcast here, so I'm not sure because it's under a different name. So I might have been on Comcast there. But I was on a big one, so it probably was. But yeah, I used to always have to, like once a week at least reset by unplugging. And now it almost never it almost never goes out. And when it does go out, that isn't the issue. I had to check something because I thought there was, I may have misspoken something earlier. I'm considering relieving the siege here. Charles is moving up against Napoleon. He picked up Hiller's troops. I don't know what I'm going to do with Hiller. But I've got a couple of moves to do. But I wanted to make sure it is possible, if you're relieving the siege, for the guys inside the city to be a reinforcing force to the force outside the city. So that's kind of cool. And I think it goes the other way too. I didn't check that. But yeah. And on counters that don't have a lot of extra info on them, the image is larger, it's not a simple flag, and the lettering is smaller. Again, our eyes are getting older. A lot of us in the hobby are getting to the point where we don't have that perfect vision anymore. And it feels so wrong that like a game would go backwards in this. I know one person complained, I wish the counters were bigger and the hexes were big, or the hexes were bigger, or something like that. Yeah, that's always been kind of a common complaint from the older side of the hobby. You know, I mean, when I got into it, I can remember people complain, you know, guys who were from an earlier generation than I was, complaining about not being able to read things as easily. And as we got into a certain period, the larger counters, larger hexes became kind of more of a thing. But, you know, this just feels like a step back in so many ways, graphically, etc. And it's like, yeah, the original was probably hard enough to deal with. But yeah, I mean, putting that big image of a face and whatever on it, and this sort of consistent use of a particular point size for the text is like, I mean, it was forced there to put the tiny little flag and the letter on the units. It's not really as required for the leaders. But honestly, I don't care. It's not necessary for me to be able to see, you know, a little cartoony figure that's meant to sort of represent Ney, but doesn't really, like, it doesn't stand out at all in any sort of way. It's not like a portrait or something like that, you know, that's been reproduced. It's sort of like a McGowan style artwork. And I'm like, I don't mind that artwork as long as it doesn't interfere with the game. And the problem is that it tends to, because they want to put a more detailed image on there than was necessary. The flag worked just fine for me. Charles launched an attack on Napoleon. Results came out badly. I got a D2. Napoleon got a 0. Now, I have a fair chance of bringing Kutuzov in, who, honestly, I forgot, but he took attrition that was a little heavier because he's under siege. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strength points with him. Five strength points would not be enough to cure Charles of his D2. It wouldn't cure it anyway, but he's not going to have enough strength points at a higher morale. But it's kind of interesting because Charles has 6 strength points at a 0 morale. Ferdinand would be adding 1 and a 1, and then there'd be 2 Russian regulars at 2 and a guard at 3. And you have to take the group that's the largest. That's why guards are kind of shitty. Unlike in Empires in Arms, as an example, they don't get averaged in. They don't help your morale. The only way they help it is if you use the Imperial Guard rule for the French, or if you just, if you have so many, you know, if the majority of your force is guard, or if you're I can't remember. I think it's just the plurality. I don't remember the terms well enough. But yeah, it doesn't work on means. It doesn't work on any on anything. So it's like, it's just whichever group is the largest. And if you have 2 groups that are the largest, I think you take the worst group of everything, no matter what. Like if you have a tie for largest, which could easily happen. So I think I have to leave. And I'm outnumbered by Cav, so I take a pursuit loss, and that sucks. Gets us to the end of the turn and the end of the year. And the end of the year is an interesting time. First of all, we have to check that chronology. because we're going to be entering 1806. But also, we have to worry, just about every nation gets additional force pool each year. So I've got to update all those. So a problem here, the French, well, Holland is supposed to get an extra leader 0 and a cav. I can get the cav easy enough. And my stupid thing's still not working. But there isn't an additional minor leader for France. They've got leader A. I don't remember where he came in. He may have started in Holland, but there's no leader B minor for France. Was there in the original? See, here's one thing that helps. If you're playing with hidden units, the old leader display just didn't work. Yeah, we had an additional minor leader on the French side. He doesn't exist anymore. So the counter just doesn't exist. So it's like, yeah, because this is a complete copy of the original force pool display, I don't have the pieces to support it because they did something weird. Strangely enough, I was actually griping in my own head about, well, that's not strange, about these leaders, the leader A and B with their 1 leadership rating, for which there doesn't really seem to be a good argument. They're never added as reinforcements. The only thing they're added as is, I guess you can take them when you take a casualty as your replacement leader. And that, like, feels, I don't know, it feels wrong to me. It's like you've got these named leaders who are decent, and you're just making the assumption that certain countries, France, okay, I can see the argument there. Austria, does it really make sense that Austria has a couple of leaders who are, you know, especially for things like the Italian campaign, who are better than all the leaders they have, you know, and better than the majority of their named leaders? it feels like the game has, like, drifted away from what it's supposed to be. And again, I like the original better on this. I don't know how many countries have it. I think Russia has some too. No, maybe not. Yeah, it's Austria and France. And you can make an argument for France, I think, that, like, yeah, they had really good staff, and if they needed replacement leaders, they would work, you know, they would have better ones. There were plenty of named leaders they could put in, you know, who were quality. And notice they have Victor in here, but like McDonald, he was a quality, you know, he's a marshal, damn it, and he's not even in the game. Whereas I think there are actually generals that are in here that I think there are leaders who are not marshals. Let me just take a look. It doesn't really count to use the people from before. Yeah, like Kellerman. Kellerman shows up in here. Now, he wasn't in the original game. He's here because he's important in the Italian campaign, but he shows up as one of the generals, you know, in this grand campaign. And, you know, he's kind of minor comparatively. I guess he's really the only one. The rest are all pretty important. But yeah, I mean, I would rather see McDonald on the board. Kellerman had, like, you know, one impressive little period during the Marengo campaign. And really, it was on the battlefield as a subordinate officer. So I don't know if he deserves a 1, you know? But yeah, it definitely feels odd to have these excess unnamed leaders that have been added to the game who have ratings as good as decent leaders. Not great leaders, you know. A 2 rating is pretty damn good in this game. A 3 is Wellington and Napoleon. So ones are pretty okay. You know, zeros are what you have to deal with to funnel your troops around with. So unnamed leaders make perfect sense with that. If you're stuck with an unnamed leader, well, at least you can move your troops. You have a commander in charge of them if you lost your commander, because they represent the staff or whatever. But giving them a higher rating than 0, it just feels, I don't know, it feels against the game. And as I put these here, I remember a rule that I forgot about and have been cheating on. Pretty sure that I have taken more than one, like a Northern Italy and a Naples, a Neapolitan unit, on the same turn. You're not allowed to do that. You can only produce with one minor in each minor group. It's not going to make a big deal of difference there. Let's take a look at the Grand Campaign. Prussia begins rolling for France. This can happen if Austria falls quickly, or it can happen earlier. All right, what's up with that war with France? We should have a rule for Prussia. It can become pro-French by alliance rolls. It may not until it's been conquered by France. Beginning with the third turn after the first conquest of Austria, or May 1806. So I'm going to put this marker down on May. I hope that's, no, that's Russia. This must be Prussia. Just to remind me, that's when we start rolling. It's possible that could move closer. Austria is not far from collapse at this point. But Vienna has not fallen, Prague has not fallen, and Budapest is completely open. All right, we're going to pause there. Try resetting that again because it's obvious. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just down. It's been raining, and I don't know. Every winter I have a day or two where the internet goes out. Well, this kind of sucks. I went to sleep for a couple hours, and it's still out. Right now, it's just finding its feet again. I plugged it in again. I even went outside to see, because there's one place where I made a correction. Well, where I cut the line accidentally a few years back, many years back now, and I had to fix it, but it looks okay, although there are things that could have disturbed it, like a branch that landed on the line and a bunch of ivy that, of course, you know, could shift things, whatever. But it looked as solid as it could be. It's still warming up, but yeah, I don't know. Last time I had one of these in the winter, I went out and did something, and I mean, there's nothing I can do. I just sort of fiddle with it, and it worked. Anyway, here we are in January 1806. I'm gonna remember the weather, and then well, let's see what it's like, and then get the Prussians going. And it's going to be cold down the line again, which is just normal winter. I like the variants available, but I don't know. Again, it's a little bit of chrome. It's cool. It doesn't bother me. It's the graphic stuff that bugs me. A little bit of attrition here. One of the units I had accidentally, I guess, put a Westphalian unit. They can't be any of those out yet. But I had to make sure by looking in the setup, because there's like a King's German Legion unit, you know, that couldn't be built. But Westphalia, you know, the thing that is Westphalia in terms of being able to provide troops to the French doesn't exist yet, so that would be kind of weird. Took a little bit of casualties off the attrition number. I forgot to do the naval turn, so I'm gonna jump back and do that. I tried to run this blockade to try to get a French ship here. I might try to get a Spaniard out there too. The problem with the Spaniards are they're facing something like Nelson's fleet, which I could use part of to intercept. They're also facing things like these, which there's just so many interception chances and whatnot that I don't really feel like I have a fair shot of getting away here. Yeah, make the 1 in 6, whatever. Okay, but this guy's free and open, but there's so much that can intercept him, and then if they do, yeah, I guess I go sailing out into the North Atlantic and try to hunt some ships. But my chance of being able to continually keep the commerce rating going seems low. So it's like, yeah, how much am I going to really get off of that? The French and Spanish fleets have been repaired. Spaniards spent a double production on it. They still are building a ship, which they're not worrying about anymore. The French spent 2 points. But I built Cav, and now Cav is kind of interesting. Without the special Cav combat roll, they're not that valuable. I mean, they're not worth paying double for the most part. But with it, they're real interesting. Being able to throw that +1 into a battle is a big deal. They're better than Guard. Just more useful across the board. I really like Cav in this one. All right. I guess we get to the movement. Got to try to take Dalmatia before Austria surrenders. So here's the role I was looking for. Up here at the top, during the game, whenever all of a state's production cities are controlled, the state is considered conquered. So I have to take 4 cities in Austria. But I thought this existed. But it's not anywhere close. It's way down here in G. All kind of information about what happens when a state becomes conquered. If the capital of a major state is controlled by the opposing forces during any alliance phase, the player who controls the state may sue for peace. If it's accepted, the state is considered conquered, and all the above restrictions immediately imply. If the faction which controls the capital rejects it, the state remains at war until it's conquered, as defined in 1 above. Austria probably is willing to surrender here. But they haven't lost Vienna yet, so they can't. It's a horrible placement for that rule. Like, it's just so far and deep into the rules when it's one of a couple of ways the state might surrender, one of which is up on top, but the other one should be immediately as part of that, not as like after all of the effects of the surrender. A couple battles here against Charles's demoralized, forced Hiller over there, just trying to knock people out. We're not actually going for Budapest yet. I want to give Vienna, it's just still too many Russians floating around for me to be comfortable with stretching out that far. It's like such a coincidence. This is the second time this has happened, where after I unplugged it at some point, but it wasn't right after. It wasn't like it took its time. Some point after having fiddled around with the wire, things got better. So I'm going to be, back downstairs, able to be online and whatnot very shortly after I finish the French turn. But like, I feel like it did take about 10 minutes for it to reconnect afterwards. Maybe not that long, but a decent amount of time. Probably there's a pattern that shows up when it's busy connecting, and then a pattern that it shows with the lights when it's not, when it isn't able to get a signal. And it got to that, it got through the cycling and trying to set itself up, and to the, I don't have a signal point, which it shouldn't get to if I had fixed something. But this is twice now this kind of behavior has happened. The other time was, I don't know, maybe last year, maybe a few years back, 2 or 3, I don't know. Because pretty much since my wife died. maybe before, it's hard to tell. But I've become so like so online. Like I don't know how to cope when I'm not able to be online. Now, if there was no internet, she would have flipped, like she totally did when I cut that wire. But like I would have had somebody to deal with then, right? So we could go for a walk or play a game or something, you know. But since I've been on my own, even when I had work and had to be on the net for work, I would still be like, I would, be like, oh fuck, I can't work without this. But that would be all. I could find other things. I didn't fall into the sort of, well, what do I do? But I do find something to do, but it's just become such an absolute part of my life in a way that it really wasn't. Even while I was working, maybe it really wasn't. Going past my life a little bit. Although at night it's particularly hard on me. And that's why, it's like, it just feels like such a blow. And then there's also the worry of what if it's going to be out for, what if it is my wire or whatever, and it's going to be out until I do something, or because I'm supposed to go for a walk on Thursday. It's Tuesday today. If it's out for a couple of days, I'm fucked. I don't have a way to contact anyone at all, really. And then, so I won't be able to answer about times or whatever. There are just so many things. I rely on it absolutely for my life as a whole. But that's different. Right now, the concern was, I can't play my stupid little video game, which wasn't as big a deal as like missing out on days of raid and like a major event or whatever. I just don't care that much about this one, and shit like that. Anyway, I've got these battles to take care of. This one's going to be a double doinker type battle, trying to hit him from both sides. Maybe not. There were no troops there. I don't know. I guess I'll go join Charles. I don't know how that happens. Like, he could have moved a lot more without troops, so I really don't know what's going on, but I'm looking around and he doesn't have anything. Assuming, like, he's somewhere reasonable. I don't know where to find the leaders. Like, I look where there's troops. There he is, up there. Yeah, he's got no troops with him. I don't know what happened. Hopefully nothing happened. Both sides lost one unit. Charles retreated. Davout doesn't see any reason to pursue. Even though it gives him the mountain advantage, he wants to stay close to Napoleon here. Charles's troops already demoralized. They don't want to stick around and fight. There was no pursuit because they had equal cav. So that puts us to, and I have to constantly, like, just the fiddling, because I don't have everything near each other the way I would with the old game. I have to grab from here, go over there, because these take up more space and everything. I don't know. I like the extra size in here, but it does mean that there's more space taken up, and I've got this whole other sheet of what would normally be coalition forces that have to be near the French in case they're being used, and the advantage of having them separated exists, so I want to use it as opposed to all the charts being consolidated, so that it made it easier to figure out, because like I have to lean over this way, count the troops here, lean over this way, count the troops here for combat or whatever, which wouldn't happen in opposed play. But if I was playing with the hidden movement, this would definitely be more appealing. My biggest gripes about the original game, and only the combat chits make up for it, is how indecisive battles are, you know? And they just feel like, and I don't mind that. There should be skirmishes like this. In fact, maybe the majority of probably the majority of battles should be skirmishes, not decisive fights between armies. But this almost precludes decisive fights between armies from happening. I feel like the restrictions of the withdrawal chit make it maybe a little too common, but it's an improvement at least. I completely ignored a couple of things at the end of the turn. It's daylight now. Get a little bit lighter. I'll drag my garbage down. But I forgot the siege rolls. So let's do Prague. Okay, and Vienna. Cheerio, and then these just flip over. And now we go on to the Allied turns. The English are breaking off part of their fleet here and sending it into the Atlantic. The intention is to blockade Cadiz. Now, in order to do this, you kind of have to know how many ships the enemy has there, you know? It's like a lot of stuff. I just feel like the fog of war is too intensive. That's information that probably would be available through spies and whatnot. It might be wrong, but it would probably be available. The Spaniards could come out and intercept, and thus get like a 1-to-1 attack, which isn't too bad, but they can get that anyway by just attacking the blockaders. They'll be at a disadvantage. They don't know whether Nelson's there or not, but he's probably not. He's probably blockading the French. But it's not worth it, because if I succeed, larger English forces can come out and seek me out. To a large extent, the game just feels like, you know, and it always did, the naval game is just like so unimportant to this. You know, the English, it is possible the English could lose naval dominance, briefly. And if they do, horrible things happen. But it's a fair amount of effort and rules burden for something that has usually very little effect on the play of the game. So I don't know. I mean, you're closer to some kind of parody. Wow. I pronounced that as not quite a homophone, to be honest, as P-A-R-O-D-Y. I mean, I saw it in my head that way almost. Yeah, the brain's not working that well. You know, you could compare it to something like the Civil War game or the World War I stuff that I have, notably La Grande Guerre. But a number of the World War I ones make the German fleet too capable, too likely to win the naval war. But in Civil War, you know, the U.S. has almost absolute dominance of the sea, but it can do something with its boats. The Brits, the only thing they can really do is once they have everything blockaded in, they can use their transports to get their troops where they want to put them, wherever that might be. Run the attrition for the Allies, and it's not a bad roll. I run across something that I'm like, what the hell is going on here? The Austrians have leader E here. They only have one strength point there. The French have Bernadotte. I'm pretty sure he has more than a couple. Yeah, he has like 4 strength points. I'm not sure why he didn't attack. I'm as likely to lose something to attrition as I am to assaulting, probably. Well, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't matter as long as I don't take Vienna, except that Bernadotte could be helping me strengthen my position against the Russians. A viewer commented on a post, and this may be where the misconception comes up. A viewer responded to something as if I had said city points aren't important in this scenario. It's possible I said that, but it's also quite possible I was talking about these shits. Prussian city points. How the fuck does Prussia need a city points marker? First of all, city points are tracked over here, not on the production track or anything like that. And they're not tracked by country, they're tracked by side. I don't know what those shits are for. And that may have been where the confusion came up. I was putting away another excess counter that looks very much like it, the French production points counter, which they don't get to store their production points. Maybe it was intended for the rolls and didn't make it in or something. Well, maybe they do here, except here they say, unlike all other states, England may accumulate production points and may lend them. I'm missing the production rules for this, for the most modern game. So there may be something in that section that says France can use them. It's not in the original game, and this particular rule seems to indicate, which I think is from the original game, in terms of location and everything, seems to indicate the French don't get to do that. I'm not going to go down and look at the PDFs and whatnot. It's not worth it. The French usually want to use all their production points each turn. Interesting facet in the original rules, I don't know if they made it into the new ones, but cost per strength point, guard infantry or regular cav cost 2, regular infantry or Cossack cav. What's not mentioned is guard cav. France and Russia have guard cav. I just charge them 2 for them. I figure it doesn't really make sense to boost it up to a 3-point cost. Russians move forward into a position to support Budapest. Meanwhile, I think I want to move this guy here. Meanwhile, he had an extra point, and then I chose, I don't want to actually force there, because I might be out of supply if this falls, but now I've got a Cossack there, and that gives me a little bit more strength. And I need to support Budapest now. Charles was unable to recover any of his morale, so he did not enter Budapest, because if he moves, the way it was worded, at least how I took it, if he moves into a space with a larger enemy force, he doesn't get a recovery. In fact, I don't know. Oh, looks like I got a friend just sitting out in the rain. Far away, but easier to see with my eyes than with the camera. It's funny, long distance stuff, I can't really zoom in on all that well. I can, if it's not that far away, like a bird or something, just like I can zoom in on the counters here. So I think that is the end of the January turn. Things do not look good for the coalition, but they shouldn't. This is essentially the Austerlitz scenario with other stuff going on. The only real difference is Portugal falling. But that pretty much happens every time I play, every time I've played the old game. So completely ahistorical, and there's not much the Brits can do. Even if they ship troops down, they probably can't hold it against Spain. The reason that France had trouble taking it is that they were fighting a war with Spain when they went in. But, yeah, it's a major power versus a relatively weak minor. Not that weak, but weak enough. And, yeah, I mean, Austria is going to fall. It's supposed to. France isn't going to accept them falling until they form Dalmatia, so there you have it. It's cold across the board in February, and the Prussians got a good production so they could build a cav. The French tried 2 things. They tried to run this blockade with their fleet, Nelson caught them, captured a ship, damaged another. Not a good combination. And then they tried to run this one, and it was just a simple failure. I don't want to run anything in the Atlantic because Nelson, again, can deal. There's so many British fleets in the Atlantic that it's problematic for the French to try to make it out. One question is where the French would go if they ran the blockade. Their fleet is big enough that they could probably deal with whatever comes out in the Atlantic, unless it's Nelson himself. And that gets us to, I guess, the attrition roll. Let's see what it is. That shouldn't be too bad. Kind of goofy, not surprising. A number of powers got additional leaders this year, and I hadn't deployed any of them. I'm starting to do it now, but I don't really need more leaders for the most part. Maybe I need one here. We'll put somebody there. Okay, so French moving their forces out of Roquefort finally, now that I have leaders. There's one good use. Eugene moved up here to try to provide supply for Ney, but it's actually not needed because Ney just formed Dalmatia, which he can draw supply from now. And up here, I mean, we got the constant flow going forward, but we've got something of a cordon here on the river helping protect Napoleon. The Russians can't really get there easily. We're going to launch an attack over here on Charles. We're not quite ready to take Budapest, and Ney is heading up that way as well. And we've got pretty good supply, so I can just cut supply and jump across. I think if I shift some cav or something, that'll allow me to do that. Cav is great for supply, for extending your supply, because unlike I think it was Nations in Arms, cav weren't allowed to be depots, but infantry were. Anyway, just the one battle, and then I'll make the siege rolls. I'm not going to assault this. I just don't. It doesn't feel like it's worth the risk now. Early on, it probably would have been. Only the winner gets his surrendered forces back. Really bugs me. Does it matter that much with troops? Probably not, because again, the force pools usually don't fill up, although some of the requirements for nations re-entering the war and whatnot are that they completely build their force pool back. I assume that doesn't count their surrendered units. But I'm really worried about somebody like Charles being surrendered and not having him available. Empires in Arms, both combatants give back all their surrendered troops, but the way this is worded, I don't think that's the case. I ran into something fucked up. I must have screwed something up somewhere. Who is this? Yeah, he's got the right troops. So, you remember I found a French leader no, actually it was an Austrian leader, I think, who had no troops. Well, I just found a leader who was in the force pool who had 4 units with him, 4 strength points. I don't know where they were. What was supposed to happen? I can't find an empty leader anywhere who has, who needs those troops. I'm gonna, so what happened was, Davout, wherever the hell he is, got wounded for 5 turns. I don't know if somebody else got wounded and I screwed something up, but I can't imagine that I didn't pull the counter out. Anyway, Charles fought a battle. He used a cav charge. It reduced his losses. Davout pushed him back, but now we have one of those excellent staff officers, which I think are bullshit, who took over, who has leader A minor with him. But what I don't know is where these troops should be. I'm going to throw them back in Strasbourg. I know that's not where they were. They were probably in Italy or in Austria, but fuck them. But maybe, I don't know, maybe they were left over from the last scenario or something. Who the hell knows? I'm not going to be able to count the force pools and be able to tell. There's actually, unlike the Clash of Arms, not Clash of Arms, Clash of Monarchs, and it's Clash of Sovereigns. It's precursor. Well, follow up in terms of when it was published, precursor in terms of the era that it covers, which use force pools. Those state what the force pool of the nations are. They grow, and there's pieces on the board that aren't accounted for in it and whatnot. So you don't actually have a different, you don't have a set value of how big the army can be. So I don't know what to do, but I'm going to put these troops in Strasbourg under, I don't know, I got an extra leader left. I got Murat left. A little tricky thing, Davout ended up snapping into minor leader A's hex, able to hit Charles. But I really am worried about those Russians, and I feel like I have to beat them before I can, I can really go after Prague. But I kind of have to go after Prague fairly soon. We're getting close to the Prussians coming in. This is going to put us on the English side, or the anti-French side. But as usual, I'm going to take a bit of a break. I'm considering going for a walk. I got, like I said before, another banking task to take care of. It's rainy and yucky out, and going to just get worse today, and tomorrow's supposed to not be rainy. So I don't know. Because tomorrow I could smoke a cigar on my way. It'd just be more pleasant, I think. But I'm supposed to go for a hike on Thursday. I really like to, with the stock market dipping, I made a really, I've been holding off dropping my money into the market, and with the big dip, I'm like, oh, okay, let's throw a lot of it in now. Some of it went into bonds and stuff, but I'm like, well, I should move some more. Anyway, it's early Wednesday, and yeah, I slept for a bit, and I get tired sometime mid-afternoon, say, and end up sleeping then for whatever reason. That's been for the last couple of weeks. By the way, my chest, mostly okay. There's a little bit of stiffness there, but nowhere near, I think I hurt myself somehow, significantly without realizing. And my gut is back to its normal levels of discomfort, not feeling like I'm in trouble all the time. Anyway, we're at the Allied turn in February, and it's just really hard. I think the big thing is it's really hard for me to be excited about coming up and doing this, even though I know I got a big game and I got to make time on it. I'm having a hard time making more than 1 year a day when I definitely should be getting, 1 month a day, when I definitely should be getting through about a year a week at my normal rate of play. But I'm just, my video game is sucking me away, but I'm thinking about, I can watch videos while I clip counters, and stuff like that. It's just there's an avoidance, because there is a heavy burden to this game. And some of it is the components, and some of it is the play. Whatever the issue is with my mouse has started up again. It had been sporadic, but now it's bad like it was. I'm running my antivirus. I'm not expecting it to find anything. I don't think it was, but who knows? Maybe. It was real quick. There's no threats to Britain. I guess I could transport troops somewhere, but Austria is a lost cause as far as I'm concerned. Does Russia really need more money? I don't know. I don't have money, so I can't really send any to them. And, I got all the fleets blockaded. I got Gibraltar covered. I'm just peachy. So covering this, I moved my my prize ship over there. I think prizes cost 3. I'll probably rebuild it. I should have just sunk it if I'm not going to. But I mean this turn. Just because the navies are the key to everything for Britain right now. I got to make sure I get that naval dominance to a point where I can ignore, I can expect no commerce rating because I can handle it if it happens. I can expect no invasion attempts, nothing on Ireland if I want to read the rules on that. So on the board that an attrition roll of 3, which isn't all that high, still I had a lot of, oops, I cheated. This one. Maybe not others either. Oh, yeah, I fucked up some stuff. Shit. I was going to say I got a pretty hefty attrition rating, but I think I was counting forces of size 5 as if they were on the 6 to 10 table. 5s aren't taking any attrition, so I think I actually get 2 back. I worry so much about getting the pieces in the right places. I don't know, obviously it's more mechanical work to roll the dice for each space. I understand why you wouldn't want to do that. But it kind of locates me a little bit better. I really have to struggle with keeping track of what's on here. And then I started forgetting that 6 is the breaking point, not 5. Which I knew when I had my troops set up. That gets me to the movement. Oops, almost forgot there's production. As I'm on my way to these, I'm like, wait a minute, not quite. Sort of ping pong of, oh, you take attrition, then you get your production immediately afterwards, and just like the troops show up somewhere else. Oh, that one hurts me a lot. Again, there's a lot of mechanisms in this system that I struggle with. I don't remember struggling with them before, but I don't know. I also wasn't on camera, and when I'm on camera, I feel like I catch myself more, maybe. So decent production for the Allies. The Austrians got a double production, which they really need, with only 1 production point left. Russians just got normal. They're building horses. The English got double production, which let them repair their ship. They're actually running out of ships at this point in terms of countermix. They're going to get 1 a year, too, and they're limited by countermix. So, their navy can never grow beyond a certain point, which is kind of weird because they have 2-point ships that I won't be able to break down and stuff if I'm not careful. They don't have a lot of them, and they probably will have 2 ships together somewhere that are 1s that I can do that with. Got to be careful I don't do it with a Portuguese ship or something. Worried I might not have incremented these. I don't know. Yeah, I'm already fatigued, but I know that the Allied turn is relatively easy, except for the flow of the Russian troops. And I always remember that having been a pain early in the game, is as the Russians inch their way forward. In part because everybody starts out with their forces kind of more spread out than they end up being later in the game. Later in the game, I think it does get easier. But I'm still funneling stuff around. I guess the big thing is we've set up a defensive line around Budapest where leaders can come in to support Hiller's command if he gets attacked. It's making it less and less capable of making that attack until Vienna falls. The second wave of Russian troops is really, well, I don't know. There was like a half wave before, but the second wave is up there. So there's actually a relatively large Russian army coming close again. And that should put us to the end. And I stopped there. I'm just, before I did the movement, I was already worn out. The mechanisms that get you to the beginning of the turn are tiresome. And the movement, again, it's not that tough because I'm not trying to engage. But it is still painful moving all those Russians forward. It's like, because you have to calculate out all the supply locations and move things out of order and all kind of crap like that. Sometimes move pieces one at a time with cav so that you can see where they end up, to decide whether you're going to try to force or not. Back up here. While I was up here the last time, my computer managed to recover somehow. I don't understand. It was like that for about an hour. Usually it's just a couple of minutes now. But either way, it doesn't make sense. Like, I understand if something's very wrong. I don't understand why it's flickering. Anyway, we got the weather to do. My scan's not turning anything up, I think. But given that the last one did, well, a couple of scans ago did turn up some crap, one thing of which I actually suspect, I don't know. Let's look for the weather. Where the fuck is it? There we go. And we are in March. And this is where things can get uglier because we actually have poor weather in March. The original game didn't have this. It was just winter or not winter. But with 5, we have poor weather across the board, which is going to be as bad with the attrition and reduces movement. So it's kind of a worst of all worlds. It is the worst weather. Failed to run any blockades. I tried here and here. This fleet's not in that great a shape. It's only 3 ships, but I'm like, well, I'm getting trimmed down to the point where I kind of got to try to slip away and do something. But we got a yummy attrition roll, which, if I look at the table, if I can find it, should be good to anything up to 16 because of the French bonus. And the main focus, although I've got a lot of things in motion, is that leader B here is going to attempt an attack across the river on Hiller, bringing Seoul in. This could be very ugly, but I want to get an end to things before the Prussians come in. And then I put these markers down to help remind me to deal with those during the siege. The round of combat went poorly for the Austrians. French lost nothing. They got their special maneuver in. But it's still going to be fighting across the river is the problem. And the Austrians lost 2 strength points. Now, the Austrians have 2 choices here. Now they're small enough they could fall back into the city. Or they can rely on their defenses, and that's what they're going to do. I've got Charles, who would be bringing as many forces in, or Bagration, who would be bringing as many forces in. The French may wish to just withdraw at this point, even though they're outnumbering the Austrians that they're facing. One round of combat, I've done some casualties to them. I can fall back on my position. I can fall back from my position. Another option is I could just not attack and let the Austrians do the attack if they want to. That's actually even more preferable, which means if the reinforcements do come in, the Austrians will be the attacker. And at D1, they're demoralized unless one of those forces comes in. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call off the attack. The Austrians have the opportunity to counterattack. They don't want to take it. So they'll just take the 2-point loss, and the battle is over. And now, Prague falls, Vienna does not. To the anti-French side, which of course I'm going to break. I think I made a mistake by not trying to push out with some of... if it was worth pushing out with this, it was worth pushing out with this. Not so sure with this. Probably. These are places where the French have 2 ships here as well. And if I can get breakouts, I can't really contest, but I could at least, go commerce rating or something. Which is kind of what I feel like I'm left down to do, is test out the commerce rating system. I don't think it's going to work well for the French, though. It feels to me like what they really want to do is try to consolidate forces in order to be able to, create some kind of mass breakout and actually get the naval advantage, but they're falling behind on it. The Allied side of March, and I gotta remember it's poor weather. I think I figured out the issue with my computer. It's my mouse. It has to do with the mouse wheel. It gets depressed when I'm just doom scrolling or something, and I can fix it by clicking the mouse wheel and doing some stuff with it. Kind of, sort of. So now I see why it's unrelated. Now, the weird thing is, when it was really, really bad and I couldn't figure out, and it wasn't resolving itself at all, I swapped out a couple of other mice and the issue persisted. But I think what happened was, whatever this mouse is doing is, and the other mice, all but one of them were older, whatever this mouse is doing, it ends up having sent that signal to the computer so that other mice don't react properly either. I could probably fix the same issue with the other mice, just, doing the same kind of thing. But it is kind of interesting. It's like, you swap out hardware and it doesn't help. And there doesn't seem, it seems like it's something deeper, like maybe a problem with the USBs or something like that. But it actually ended up being the piece of hardware. It just showed up, it persists because it sends a signal to the computer to deal with the mouse in a different way. I don't know enough about how the mouse wheel works and whatnot when it's clicked in, but I just know what I physically need to do rather than really understand everything about it. Anyway, I guess we start with the boats. Brits aren't going to do much with their boats. I don't know. I mean, I could drop a threat down in Naples or something. At the very least, I could move my boats to where I have troops. And then I have these that I probably want to move somewhere else. And then let me just roll the attrition because the two don't matter. They're not. Okay, we're going to have a 3. That's probably going to cause some because there are some heavy forces over there. But I basically had some stacks of 6 that caused this. Okay, so now Bagration is going to attempt to attack here. He's got Kutuzov inside who can come out to it, join in eventually, and Charles who can come join, plus some Cav that is less likely to. Of course, he's facing the whole French army. I'm hoping... Oh, fuck, I'm behind a river. Son of a bitch. I think Charles will start by attacking Messina then. And we'll try to bring Bagration in later. Unfortunately, Hiller was not able to help himself get out of the demoralized. I should move this up to Charles so it doesn't get captured with Hiller. Hot and cold on the repatriation. I feel like once there's a peace, all surrendered units should be repatriated. That would be part of the terms of any peace in the time. It really would be, regardless of, And it's not like, Austria is just getting their troops back. They're going to be giving up territory and all that. So I think everything should be repatriated, including leaders. This is going to be a big one. I don't want to put a battle marker on it. It's the only battle going on. I've got 6-5, so it's essentially a 1-to-1 battle. And I will be at -1 on the die. -1 on the die rolls because I am the larger force against the French because they're better quality to begin with. We hope we get more. Because if Napoleon joins in, he gives up the siege. That's the whole thing. Well, that's not good. That's going to be a 5 on the 1-to-1, where we cause no damage. And that's going to be a 4 on the 1-to-1, where it causes a 1 damage. At this level, that's going to be a point of damage. I've got to deal with the numbers. Now, the attacker wants to continue attacking. I'm going to try to bring Kutuzov into the battle. He's the only one I can. He's at +2. He will be joining. I don't mark that with anything. If I was using the counter, I guess I could shift it to look something like this, covering the 3 hexes or something, but I'm just going to have to remember. This is why it's difficult if you have a couple complex combats happening, especially if they're near each other, where you really do have to do them sequentially to have the effect of the rolls, one round at a time. It's going to be really painful to shift things around. Now, I definitely want to bring this in. Actually, screw it. Messina just would have pulled out. The hell with it. And that would allow Charles to advance, but there's no real point to that. Basically, the thing is, I don't want the big battle. And since it was launched here and not against Napoleon himself, there's no real threat. But there would be a threat where Messina has to fight another round. So he took his win and ran away. And there's only one Russian cav there. I think Messena's got a cav. He has cav advantage he actually could have used, but he chose not to, I guess. So that ends the turn, again, without much happening. The battles don't end up pitched. Now, you can make a good argument for that. If I'm giving ground, yeah, there might be a little bit of rearguard action and whatnot. This is what should happen. But the problem is almost every battle is an advantage to someone. The only major battles that go into, the only real battles that happen in the game, and maybe that's fine, it feels it in concept, are ones where both sides kind of have no option but that they want to fight. Or where the forces are so evenly matched, but even then, probably one side is more in favor of the fight than the other, you know. But yeah, there are very few situations. Now, I could have just picked on this cav and blown it away, but yeah, that did not happen. All right. You know, I mean, there are only X number of big Napoleonic battles. So far, have we seen any, though? Right? And I don't really think we have. Like, strength points, we got a scale somewhere in here. No, not that. It'll be in one of these. It'll be in these two rule books. About 5,000 men. So, you know, I think the biggest battle we saw had a 15,000 man casualty rate. That's a fair amount, you know. So maybe it's okay. Maybe it's okay. I thought the numbers. I thought the strength points counted as less men. That is within a reasonable range, I think. It's just. It feels like they're little skirmishes, you know. But yeah, 5,000 men died there. It's not a tremendous battle, but it's something. Anyway, that is going to end this turn. And again, I break. I don't know if I'm coming back up. I have to force myself every damn time as we go into April. Well, found Austrian strength point here that I'm sure came off either attrition or battle, probably a battle. And then I moved all the other battle stuff over here. It may have even been the captured guy. I don't know. I put it in the force pool. I could have just added an Austrian to the force pool. Again, it's just an issue with this game. There's no way that I can keep track of all the change making that I'm making. It's not like there's a single bank or anything like that. Again, there are force pool games where if I think I've gone astray, I can check that. There's no sort of, hey, how much additional stuff should be there? And even if there was, I'd still have to count everything up on the board and everything, and there's a lot of pieces. It's a bigger game than the other ones. I don't think this used to bother me too much back with the old game. Now I get cranky about things easier. I was going to roll the weather before I came on. It is April now? Yeah. And we get a 5. That's going to be poor everywhere except the south where it's wet. Wet is the lower movement point allowance. It's going to be hard to deal with. But everybody's got the lower movement point allowance. It's the attrition that's going to be harder because now I have to consider where is that north line. We have south, central. I think the north is really just Russia. Now that says map area 4. This says map area. This says southern weather zone, central weather zone. Where's the eastern weather zone? Northern weather zone. Yeah, it's really far north in Russia. Okay, and I think the Scandinavia is part of it too, but I'm not positive about that. I would have to look that up, but they're not in play. Okay, so only with Russia's attrition do I have any reason to think. It's morning. I could go out and deposit my check now, but it's still cold and foggy, and I feel like I had to go later, but I'm also very tired because I slept until about 11 p.m. And have been up since then. So I'm like, Jesus, what am I going to do? I don't know. Prussia gets to start rolling next turn. I started pushing their troops forward. It's probably too late for them to do this. They should have done it earlier. They don't have to pay attrition or anything, so why not? Well, I don't know. I forgot about them. With a lot of fleets, one sort of succeeded. Well, it actually failed completely. The Brits got to shoot it, and both the British and the French fleet are damaged. The Brits had to retreat. The French want to stay in port so that they can repair now. Ho-hos. So I guess I'm probably not losing anything because I don't think any forces conglomerated in any horrible way. Myself in a problem again because of the counters. I built another Dutch cav. Actually, I can't build another Dutch cav. But what I found was a Bavarian cav in the Holland space. B probably looked too much like an H to me. Again, the counters are almost unplayable to my eyesight now. And again, the old game would be fine. You know, I mean, I've got progressive lenses that are reasonable. This is actually only about 3 or 4 years old, the prescription. I really ought to get another one. Reason for it, I can't find another Dutch horse. Now, I probably have one in play. I have one over here in Amsterdam. And I don't have one to put here. The counter mix on the miners, it's always been sketchy. But with the 1s and 2s sharing, like, it couldn't be a problem in the original game, I think. I think they gave you enough 1s that you could have them all separate. But with them on opposite sides of the same counter and less counters being used, it is possible, apparently, for you to not be able to deploy the entire counter mix that you need to. So I guess I'll put a Bavarian cav in there and just not let me build it. The Bavarians seem to have more than they need, but I know that they were close to the edge too. So it's like, I'm going to have to use pieces that aren't meant for the situation. Spain and France both got normal production. Spain built a boat. Oh, Spain did something cool. They built a boat and chased off the English blockade. I made sure to check in the rules that, yes, you do have to have a force that's at least the same size to maintain a blockade. It's not obvious that you would have to. Like, you know, you're just blockading the harbor. It's not like trying to prevent infiltration or exfiltration from a city. I'm getting pretty fatigued at this point. I think it was possible with some of the major powers to have too many pieces, like spread out too much. But the problem is spreading out your pieces is part of this game because that's how your supply is run. You know, that's why you've got these big chains of forces all over the place, or of counters at least. Not huge amounts of force, but it's this garrisoning of the supplies that's eating stuff up, that eats up counters. So I think it was actually, I vaguely remember having to maybe use some counters that weren't correct for some nations. But in this, with the double-sided counters, they got to be real careful. They got to make sure they give you enough 1-2 units that you can cover their entire force pool. You can't assume that they're not, especially for these smaller countries. For the majors, look, you can assume that there's going to be some consolidation of force. For the minors, you might have waves of generals coming through, picking one unit up each time, because that's all they produce. Shifting all my French, especially since I'm paying attention up here and I'm moving away from the Boulogne situation. Yeah, something could break open, or it's possible England could put a threat on Paris, but I think I can defend it. I moved into Brussels. Now, Brussels is a special town because it has a production thing. And there's a rule that specifically states Brussels isn't a production city, but it is a major city in France. And I think it should have been worded differently. This is the same, well, I only have the old rules. What it should, for this, because I don't have a couple of pages, what it should have said is Brussels is not a production city unless chosen, or something like that. Given how wordy the rules are, I don't see any problem with those couple extra words there. They tend to be, they're not sparse rules, which is one of the problems with coping with them, is there's just so much text. Anyway, I keep going with the French. So far, though, I'm setting up for an attack on Charles. That's going to be my major thing. I'm going to try to pick off some of this cavalry infantry that the Russians have in stupid places. It kind of made sense for reinforcing the battle I thought I was going to have, but I couldn't do the battle because there was a river where I didn't expect it. Yeah, the hexes are small. A net of 3 battles. Messina, Soul's going to try to jump in on that. Ney's here for reinforcements. I set it up. I want to set it up this way because that gives me a more solid defense of my my supply lines. Oh, there are more troops coming up this way. And then these two each picking off a unit. I'm going to do those two first before I make the other check. The 2 battles up here were automatics, 4-1 or better. And since there was only 1 strength point, I don't actually take any casualties. So not quite an overrun, but close enough. And, Olmütz didn't have to be. Hold on. Olmütz would be different. That's where the infantry was. So that was leader D. I had 5 strength points. That would be 5-2, 2-1. I'm going to go for that. 2-1 at even against the fortress. Hey, is it worth it? Why don't I siege it? Pinning it down is as good for me as anything else. I'll put a marker near it to remind me that I need to roll. But the other, we wanted to attack with Messina in the lead, so Soule will try to join, and he succeeds in it. That's going to give me a big +1, and we're hoping to knock Charles back, not bring whoever's there. Looks like Bagration. Okay, fucked up. I have a leader under Soule who has a bunch of troops. I actually would have lost an attrition loss, so I'm going to take that now out of step. It's very easy when you're tracking things on these external charts to not realize how many troops there are actually in place. Again, I grabbed a Württemberg piece instead of Westphalia, or Westphalia instead of Württemberg. The problem is the Westphalias have a W, the Württembergs have a WU. I think that's the same nomenclature they used in the originals. It's just not sinking in on me. But that's what I've got to lose. Now, of course, because the letters are so tiny, they're hard to see, and I have to hunt and peck through the darkened areas of the counter tray to do the replacements. I got to find 2 different piles here. Okay, so that actually ended up being another auto victory. because I had so many troops involved. I don't really want to push Massena forward, but yeah, I'll push. I'll figure out. Somebody's going to go into this hex. So another d3, but I took a loss in that one. That was a Bavarian I took. Austria took a couple hits from it, plus a pursuit loss, so they took 3. No leader losses. And now the remaining things are a 1 in 6 chance of taking Olmütz, which we do not, and a 1 through 4 on taking Vienna, which we do. We end up with, gonna quit for now, once I set this up. And almost all of the Austrian leaders are in the captured pool now. Austria has Charles and an unnamed leader. I don't think you get them unnamed leaders for captures. So like, if a leader's captured, the Austrians don't get a replacement leader. Oh look, but I have one anyway kicking around. A reinforcement I haven't taken. I don't need them. I'm only getting production in Budapest, and that's what I'm trying to defend at this point. It is really tough to face the French army, and it should be, but one thing that I was noting in my head, and I don't know if it's good or bad, this game, because it's all just strength points, and you can allocate them wherever and however you want, deviates significantly from Empires in Arms that way. Nations in Arms Nations in Arms has the same concept in play. But Empires in Arms, if it uses a core structure, and cavalry can't even exist unless it's incorporated into a core. You can't buy cavalry. You don't have a force pool limitation. You have a maximum size of your mobile army. You can build as many garrisons as you like, but once you fill all your core with cav and guards, for that matter too, you can't build any more of those. So there is actually a limitation on the size of the specialty forces, but infantry, it's assumed you can just keep dredging up whatever you want. And it works fine in any game I've played, although I know some people play things that feel like they're around the edge. You know what I didn't do? I didn't repair my French ship. Instead, I took reinforcements, God knows where. Here in Cologne, and I don't want to do that. I want to repair the ship, so I'll fix that as well. And then if you think about the Zucker operational games, there they also use a structure where each commander can have X number of infantry, X number of cav, etc. So they don't end up the forces don't end up being unbalanced. So you could create a huge cav force in this game, and it would just be like this fast strike force. It starts to feel a little bit too much like a motorized army or something like that, because it even works the same. It just has potentially an advantage in terms of that optional rule. Anyway, let me fix the shit that I've left burning, and I'll be back up at some point. I don't know. It's very likely it'll be after I go out, assuming I do make it out, because I either should go out or take a nap. Things kind of even out. I forgot the French. I think I've been remembering since, because I've been accumulating points and repairing stuff and everything. The French get a free naval point, additional from the original game, which honestly I think the original had it better, which is look, if you want to concentrate on navies, you got to pay a price. In this, giving you that free point every turn, kind of something. I don't know. You just don't feel like you're paying. You're not paying a price for dealing with your navies. And you could make an argument that, look, the shipbuilding is really largely separate. Well, yeah, except the artillery involved and the manpower. Not the manpower for the ships so much as the actual building aspect of it. Manpower for the ships is real, but it's relatively small, I think. I am on Thursday morning. It's probably getting close to 3 a.m. Always reminds me, it's 2 a.m. in the morning. Come on, you don't have to say both of those. I went out and dealt with my banking and deposited the check, and that's all a good thing and everything. I haven't moved it to funds yet, to stocks and whatnot yet, but that's something else. I can do that easily enough. I don't know, like, it's not supposed to be available for a while, so it's like, I don't know if I can do it yet, but I think I can. But that walk, in addition to already being very tired when I set out on it, I ended up sleeping, I don't know, for about 4 hours or so. Not enough time, but my sleeps have been scattered. And then tomorrow at like 11 a.m. I'm supposed to go out for a hike. So given that, well, not tomorrow, today, but I got to get some more sleep in, so it feels like tomorrow. I do want to get the Brits out of the way, or the the coalitions out of the way, forces out of the way. I don't imagine much is going to happen. Now, with major forces demoralized, although there is a real need to try and get... Oh no, that's not important. No, Vienna fell. So now we're just falling back on Budapest as kind of the last defense. And that's hard to supply the Russians all the way down there. Vienna is possible. It may be time to abandon. Austria could surrender at this point. It would save them some pain, but they want to give Prussia a little bit more time to position themselves, I think. And you know, if we can hold out long enough, Prussia might be able to save our bacon. So yeah, I think we'll hold off. Yeah, I guess that's about it. We got weather. I got to do navies. I doubt there's much. Although this isn't blockaded, that's an issue. Roll is fairly benign, but it is cold, right? Or wet. No, I can't tell. I don't know what is what. It's so fucking hard. Apparently it's poor in the south. I don't know what I was doing before, but it is wet in central. I think that's okay. I may have charged winter against the pro-French. It's just, I don't know. I like the discrimination, but it's not what I remember of the game, so it's hard. Like, I don't know. I'm just surprised that patterns that are that old, maybe I don't know. There was actually another fleet that needed to be blockaded here too, the Spaniards who got out. So I'm pretty much at parity everywhere now, with a damaged ship here. But that's just maintaining parity, yeah. Guess what I forgot? somewhere, not in the fucking force pools, just to piss me off, there's a rule that the French and English each get another ship available. I'm not going to build it this turn for the English because I feel like that would be a cheat. I don't even know where it is. It's probably in the production rules. That would make the most sense, which I, of course, don't have for the new. But I can't recall. Fuck. I can't recall where it is. Now I gotta go hunt at it for it. Bottom of the special British production rules here and the special French production rules. Now, this is not in the original game that I see. Which is where I was looking originally. Yeah, no wonder I'm confused by it. Although I thought this was in the original, to be honest. Anyway, it is problematic because the force pools are already stretched. Like, I know the original counter mix basically was stretched as well. To the extent that, like, yeah, you might use the 2-point ships as a convenience, but they're not back printed, so you don't like have a lot of leeway there. Not that back printing is necessarily good or whatever, but you could get into a case where, again, just like with the back printing, because you can just keep adding ships every year, you end up with more ships. So you can't end up with more than the force pool will allow you, except if captureds work the way they appear to be written. That just doesn't work at all because you have wrong colored ships in your stacks, and that's just going to fucking confuse the shit out of me. So I don't do that. But if you build all your possible ships, and then you have a 2-point fleet somewhere that takes a hit of any kind, even just a damage. I don't remember damage being in the original either. You end up, I'm pretty sure it's not because this whole towing stuff is new. But the naval combat was also less decisive, which meant Trafalgar couldn't happen. I don't know if it can anyway. Just like the ground combat, it feels like it's really unlikely to have certain battles happen. But anyhow, you could be in a position where your ones are so spread out that you can't physically handle things. And I guess you just lose a ship out of your force pool for that, and you'll have to wait till the next year or capture a ship or something to be able to get it. And it might be very hard to do because of the counter mix limitation. This is a really stupid design decision, right? The idea of you can create up to the counter mix, but that might end up causing you to have ships slip into another dimension, temporarily. And maybe you can get them back, maybe you can't. It's the kind of thing that, like, you would not expect from an experienced designer like McLaughlin. Sorry, is that it? Yeah. But obviously, this wasn't really his work. It's his old game with someone else doing all the work, I think. Even though he's in the credits for the new version as part of the new design as well, I really feel like that was more of a pushing ideas by him, not doing the actual work. Funny, I feel like back when I was early doing videos, first couple of years, whenever I did, well, not right away. It took like a year or so after that for
him to mention. When he was doing the Civil War by Victory Games, I think that's Eric Smith, right? Yeah. He actually contacted me because, you know, some of the things that I had expressed about it really kind of struck home with him. And he was like, yeah, I'm thinking about revisiting the game. I get excited about that. But I feel like he was trying to recruit me for that kind of position. And like, look, I have not, you know, I have not gelled these ideas fully or anything. And I really don't think I'm the person to do it. I just want them bouncing around. So I'm actually kind of interested and intrigued as to how different the reprint that's coming is going to be. Because I doubt that it's going to cover the stuff that I was really excited about, which is really changing the leader system significantly so that you don't know how good your leaders are. But that you have clues, but those clues are likely to be very wrong. In particular, I'm thinking, you know, Albert Sidney Johnson was very, very highly regarded by the Confederates. And he fought one battle, died in it, was not particularly impressive in any way. But likewise, and somebody like Grant and certainly Sherman were not at all well regarded. I mean, yet they, through, you know, the battles that they fought, proved that they could do a good job. But then on the opposite side of it, you have someone like Lee, who was very, very highly regarded by both sides, if all reporting is to be believed. I'm not sure how much I believe that he was offered command of the Army of the Potomac. It appears to be kind of more questionable than that. But, you know, that then he lived up to his expectations in a way that Johnson really didn't, and stuff like that. And that was the kind of focus that I was really hoping in whatever it was, Mr. Lincoln's War or whatever. I don't know where it is. It's got to be somewhere up here. No, just Lincoln's War. Mr. Lincoln's War is a new one, but it looks ultra simplified. But I was hoping for something really innovative with the leaders in Lincoln's War, and it wasn't there, and the game had so many flaws. I actually thought the Mr. Lincoln's War was the same game and was being, you know, reissued, and I'm like, yeah, thanks from all of us who like bought into the original Kickstarter, but it's not the case. I'm really trying to delay dealing with this game. Am I not? Something has been troubling me, which is the weather table here. I'm supposedly in April. It's possible to have a wet pour distinction, but there's no pour lower than wet. What I think we probably have here is that it is the south that's supposed to be wet and everything else that's poor. And that is how I played the French side of things. Those big Russian stacks took a hit. Production rolls were all crap. I did run into a little bit of a problem. I put those fleets into place, but I put a Portuguese fleet instead of the British fleet. This kind of shit's just going to keep happening. And now I guess I settle into the annoyance of moving these pieces. Brits stored production points. All I have left is Landwehr, which according to someone I'm not able to build except in Hanover. That wasn't in the original rules, I believe. I'm not sure. And the King's German are, the Landwehr are not. They just exist with no claim under the original rules. Maybe that's been corrected. Somebody spoke authoritatively, so, and it makes sense to me. And two militia, and I'm like, militia are just attrition bait, you know? So I'm just storing all my points. I had nothing I could do. My ship just put its repair counter down, of which, of course, they didn't give you any. They just tell you to use a repair counter that doesn't exist. The only time I ever want to dig entrenchments is when I'm in a city. I'm like, oh, because it's the only time you're not really mobile is when you're trying to defend something. Yeah, the lines around it might be useful too, but Jesus, and you're not allowed to. Right, so the Russians shifted their axis. They're now running through the Carpathians here for their supply, scooped something up, made it back, and just trying to get our way back to Budapest instead of, this would be too dangerous to try to defend. This might be dangerous anyway, but I can run from Brest-Litovsk to here, run my supply through there. Right now, it's running up this way, but that's okay. And there's my stuff that's moving, and I am in no condition to be playing this, I can tell. I'm just, my mind is kind of foggy. I was even having trouble with my video game. And this puts us in an interesting position because next turn Prussia gets to start making their rolls to enter. Now what's happened? Well, as far as I can tell, there are no fucking city points in this game. Wait, there are city points, and I have one. The French have a city point now. So I mark that here. No, there are almost no victory points. And like, I don't understand because they're never going to clear out. Basically, every time Napoleon gets beaten in a big enough battle, and big enough isn't that many. It's 25,000 men, which there is a political cost for the rest of the game, as far as I can tell. Those never get cleared. But I have a city point right now against Austria, which will delay Prussia's entry. Paradoxically, Prussia's unwilling, like if you were playing this, so I'm playing this truly multiplayer by the new rules, how I'm interpreting them, where I think Prussia has to make some kind of roll to get into the war the first time, and they have to get into the war the first time. If you were playing the original game with the true multiplayer version, Prussia would declare war on turn one, right? We want to beat France. We've got absolutely no reason to delay and be butchered later, even though our army's not built up and whatever. And this is kind of weird because in Empires in Arms, the army feels very different. The Prussian army is almost entirely built. But if they lose it, they can never rebuild it. It's hard to rebuild here, too. Mainly the Cav is really tough because they only have one production point, and then they have tons of landwehr once they've like lost 2 wars. Having a hard time coming up here. Yesterday, as usual, it's Friday, which means supposedly I should go dancing. I don't know if I'm going to. My usual ride home is probably calling in sick. And yesterday, I went for another long walk. Same general area, different person, same tamales. They didn't, no ill effects. I don't think it was the tamales. I think it was the way, all along I thought it was because it was similar. Just a general problem I have. I think I just ate too much and filled my gut too much, and that made it hurt for a long time. I gotta be careful and never eat too much. Yeah, I ended up getting up way too early. My sleeping schedule's been all over the place, and somehow or another I basically slept through the night, which is really weird because I fell asleep not long after I got home, too. So somewhere around 4 p.m. And yeah, I got up at times within that, but I wasn't up as long as I expected just to play the video game and whatnot. I was just too tired to do anything else, so I laid down and read, and that always means sleep. Anyway, enough of that bullshit, right? Too much of it. We got the Prussia rule to come in, but first let's check the weather, see what we're gonna see, because I should know that for decisions. It should be May now. We had crappy weather last turn. May is almost a certain, yeah. It's going to be decent weather across the board. I guess we'll do the walk here. But then we have, as we walk back, the Prussia rule. What is that? And again, it's weird because it's like not obvious, you know, how much impact this rule should have over a true multiplayer game. In the original game, the multiplayer was basically unrestricted, so Prussia would declare war on turn 1, which felt wrong to me. And this feels like it gives me an out from that. May not become pro-French by alliance die rolls until it's been conquered by France. Now, normally in a multiplayer game you wouldn't have alliance die rolls, but I feel like this is an attempt, or this is a means of scripting and controlling what might happen. A die roll may cause it to become anti-French, in which case it could return to neutrality. Okay, so we got the Prussian can roll 2 dice in each Prussian alliance phase. So I don't know that I'm going to require this, because it is controlled by a player. But beginning on the 3rd turn of the first conquest, etc., May 1806, roll 2 dice each Prussian alliance phase. If necessary, place a Prussian flag on the production track on the 3. Yeah, we don't have to do that. The first time a roll of 2 will cause it to declare war. The second time a roll of 3. Okay. So, yeah. Let's take a roll. I guess they're not very likely to come in. I thought they would be modified by the city points or something. Nah. Well, we are very, very far from it. And that means the Prussians get, you know, their production, their movement. I can roll their production while I'm here. It's going to be a whole infantry. Navy tries to run various blockades. This one got caught, and the French lost another ship to capture. I'm not chancing the Nelson thing. I feel like I have enough advantages as long as I'm at like 1-to-1 or whatever, and it's not a massive battle. Could be some issues, but Boulogne is empty again, so I'm like, well, I'm more willing to risk a defeat at this point. Yeah, was I paying attention to that? No. And the attrition is not bad. I cheated. That's what the French got. I cheated. Fuck. I was going to say they got a good production roll. The Spanish got a good production roll. The French didn't, and I fucking cheated with the French. I was building navies primarily. So, let's see. I have to lose like 4 strength points off the French here. But more importantly, the miners. And I was doing something that is sort of cheating, but it's how I'm interpreting the rolls. Like if I have a miner group where I have 1 strength point and 2 different miners in it, I'm allowing them to build 1 point of production in 2 different minors if need be. But that shouldn't be happening. I just noticed that I had a 1 for that and realized, yeah, that was wrong. And we returned to Boulogne because obviously the Prussian rules are not as scary as I thought they were. It's going to take them a long time to get ready, and I want to have that threat in place. Of course, troops just constantly moving back and forth to shuttle, or leaders moving back and forth to shuttle the troops. Got a couple of battles possible. Ney is charging across the river, because he's the bravest of the brave, of course, against Charles. Charles. He's got good odds, and Charles's force is demoralized already. It seems like a decent idea to try to do that attack. Had to work to keep my supply lines open. It's a lot of effort in this game, but, you know, it is what it is. And Napoleon is trying to attack Bennigsen. He has, I think, Soule with him. He's got a heavy force, so he should have pretty good odds against that. It's not exactly clear that there'd be interference between these 2 battles, so maybe I could do each one separately. But actually, this one cav here, actually both of these cav, no, this one cav, that's it, could actually interfere in either battle. So I kind of have to do them at the same time. Today's battle I did first. That one was kind of interesting. It went poorly for Ney. He took a D1 result. That doesn't demoralize him, though, and Charles had to use his Russian cav as the primary force, or else he was demoralized. So even though he had good bonuses, there was a great die roll for Charles, he still's got to withdraw because now he has a demoralized force facing, around a battle. And if I bring anything in, I get an odds advantage, but or I get an advantage. I recover my morale and whatnot. But if I don't, this is just going to surrender, and wouldn't surrender Charles, but it's an ugly looking situation. I don't know. Is it worth it? Like, our situation is pretty hopeless. So I think actually I'm going to try, because I can bring Hiller in too. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with the battle. But I can't deal with that right now because I have to go to this other battle before I start going to the rounds here. Okay, so we went up here and this battle got finished. It was Bagration, not Bennigsen. Napoleon beat him rather handily, D3'd him. He ran. There was a cav charge involved, so we took a cav loss. Kind of an interesting situation where you might have 2 requirements on you. It wasn't the case here, where you have to take the same morale as you used in the battle, and you have to take a cav, but your cav is lower morale or different morale. My ruling on that is that the cav takes precedence, but if it's possible to fulfill both, you have to. So yeah, a fair amount of Russians were beaten up there, but over here, Charles, who should not have this D2 on him, he was just a D1, wasn't he? Has received reinforcements both from the cav that was near him and from Hiller himself, and much, much worse, Ney has no reinforcements. Massena didn't decide to show up for him. So he's crossing the river fighting, but he doesn't have to. So here's the thing. He has the option not to continue the attack, which means then Charles would have to attack across the river at Ney. Is that worth it? I don't know. Charles has Hiller with him. That's 8 strength points. Ney has 3, so I'd have a 2-to-1. Ney is demoralized by 1, so morale would be equal. I would be at like a -1 on the chart. Again, I feel like I have to take chances here. The Russians don't seem to be saving my bacon, so let's beat up on Ney, we hope. And we get a 7 on that 2-1, and that affects the smaller force. Really? Wow. And they get, we're at -1, a 4, which affects the larger force. So both are getting a 1. I didn't throw the cav in for some reason. I don't know. It's kind of a hit or miss thing. I don't know if we're going to continue. Charles does not want to withdraw. He's willing to take even if Massena comes into the battle. But Ney is feeling awfully weak. If he doesn't get a 3 or better, he's in a lot of trouble. And he's not going to win the game off of this battle. So I think, no, because of the cav threat. Screw it, we're going to try another round of battle. Charles is not going to continue the attack, I think. Okay, Massena does not come in. Oh, that makes it interesting for Charles, though. Still that 2-1. Yeah, I guess he does. I guess he does. I didn't like the result last time. We're still at that same -1. But this time we get a little better die roll. Oh, well, a little better for us from the French. We take a hit still. Did I do that wrong? I don't know. Yeah, it's again a 1-1. Not what we want. This time, same situation, but now Massena's in play. And that adds a much, much larger force. Charles is certainly not going to attack that. But I do believe that Ney will continue to attack. Now, I think he's the commander in the original Hex's leadership, not the best leader on the field. Gotta check that. It's the stack with the largest force in it, which is Massena, which gives a big advantage to the French. French did a cav charge. We again got a 1-1 result. This time it was at 3-2. See, this is really weird because I don't know what happens if the original battle hexes go away. I think the battle gets to continue, which may lead us to a position where we can lay siege to Budapest. And that would be a big advantage. We didn't want to attack Hiller originally. I'm not sure why. But now that we're drawn into the battle, like, yeah, it's not that bad. The problem here is Charles actually withdrew from battle. They took a D3, both forces withdrew. These fall back into there. I don't think I get a chance to advance into there now. I am going to push Ney forward. I kind of can't afford to. Let me check to see if I can siege Budapest at this point. That was part of the reason I continued the battle and continued eating up my cav. The answer is yes, you're allowed to advance into any hexes that the enemy withdrew from, which means I've now laid siege to Budapest with Massena and Ney. Large losses across the board, but do we have enough? 5, 6, 7. We have enough to siege it. 8, 9 to 4. I think we continue the attacks. Now, Charles's troops have recovered their morale. Austria may have just surrendered. What do we got here? We got Leader H. I did not declare an assault with him. So, yeah, but Austria still just surrendered because that's an unimportant town. These are the loss pools for everything. After I get those placed, I'll go over what the impact of the surrender is. There is something interesting here, though. which is pretty much the entire Austrian command corps is captured. If the way the rules actually read was correct, which is that just the winning side gets their captives back, Austria would be without leaders for the rest of the game. They have lost everything, including unnamed leaders and everything. That can't be the case. So, gonna have to step in. I think I did this back with the old game too, and say, yeah, that's not exactly what they meant. And it doesn't even make sense, right? Like, it's not historically accurate to say that they would keep all these Austrian captives. So those are going to get returned to the force pool, among other things. State immediately becomes neutral, may not join either pro or anti for at least a year. This is a little weird because Austria and Prussia were most kind of pro-French during the period where they were conquered, like right after they were conquered. For the invasion of Russia and whatnot. That's when they gave troops, etc., which I think is a requirement in this, but I'm not sure. Nor may either faction roll for the state during the alliance phase. By the way, I missed something. Austria has just moved to the neutral column, but the Italian miners are actually pro-French at this point. I'm putting an Austrian flag up on the board up there to remind me that they can't roll. Well, I don't know about rolling, but they can't join either alliance. I'm going to use these pro-Austrian city points here to indicate they've surrendered once. That's important for victory conditions, etc. I could use a flag or something. Who cares? We are going to do the Peace of Pressburg, which I have to go look up. Now, while it's neutral, okay, so both sides can move through Austrian territory. I'm allowed to boot the Austrians out of here. Oh no, those are Russians. No, they're still under siege. How about that? Okay, I have to leave the capitals as soon as possible, but I do get supply sources out of this. Under the new rules. These are not the old rules. The new rules, I think, I don't remember exactly. Well, maybe it's in those, but where is supply? Page 9. GCG I.2C. Do I have that here? I don't. That's the rules I don't have, but maybe I have it here. I.2C, the faction which conquered. Yeah, there's no discussion of this. Of the supply sources. I think it's any major city that I occupy within Austria is now, with French troops, is now one of my supply sources. And that makes it a lot easier to invade Russia. And that's important because I'm actually thinking that may be the task I want to take. This is going to be a hard decision across the board, or a relatively complicated one, because the game is so scripted, maybe I have to go deal with Prussia first. Maybe if I don't do it in that order, I cause some issues. But it feels to me like Russia is kind of beaten up right now. Of course, they might get more beaten up while I beat up Prussia. But I have a time limit to when I need to attack Russia. I'm nowhere near it. Maybe getting Prussia cleaned out of the way is the better move. I'm not sure. I got to think about that. But anyway, I have free reign through Austria, and now I can turn up and either attack Prussia or Russia. I probably should go for after Prussia first. They'll be quick, and then the invasion of Russia. But the invasion of Russia after the first defeat of both of these. Now, I have to worry about the Treaty of Pressburg, which I'm doing, but I may be modifying somewhat. And my battery is almost out. Venice is ceded to Kingdom of North Italy. That does not give me another production city. Innsbruck is ceded to either Bavaria or France at the French player's option. The black production doesn't do any good for either, but I'll take it. Anti-French state may reverse this treaty by conquering the aforesaid minor states. Doesn't really matter. I don't know. The only real thing this allows me to do is to take Innsbruck and to say I'm holding it. Historically, it was given to Bavaria, and it was kind of their spoils for being a relatively powerful country that joined France's faction. It feels absolutely wrong to just say, yep, France has it. I'm giving it to Bavaria just out of historical, which I feel like it should be here. That should be the end of things. I have the prisoner exchange, but... Oh, I immediately roll. No, that's minors, right? Oh, no. That's how states are conquered. Never mind. That's about minors. Yeah. I did not conquer a minor. Haven't had it happen yet. All right. We're going to pause here. I got to do the Allied turn at some point. I don't know if that's going to happen tonight. It kind of, or today. It kind of depends on whether I do decide to go out. Because I really should be getting some sleep if I don't. But I so kind of don't want to go. Fortunately, I was unable to get any sleep in. I tried, sort of. It's now about 1 p.m. I probably have another shot at it a little bit later. But right now, we have the pro-French turn, or the anti-French turn, and I got to do navies before I do attrition. I was ready to roll the attrition. I feel like navies are, so unimportant, but I mean, they could change the entire nature of the game. I think that's a little funny. Sometimes neutrals can get a double turn in this game. The attrition didn't cause anything. It was very light. Sometimes a country like Austria here, which surrendered, does not get a turn at all. It can only happen if you're anti-French, but so they're not going to get any production or anything. Kind of interesting. It's kind of fair too, because they don't own their capitals. With the capture of that French ship, there are no more British ships left in the countermix, and I got all the 2s out and everything. I actually had to pull it out of my force pool. So the Brits aren't going to get any more replacement ships unless they get some captured. Strangely, there are extra transport ships. Now, I know it's probably possible you can capture transports as well. I don't remember where that is. The transport table, yeah, it's possible those can be captured as well. So, I guess I need extra ships for that, but I can't get additional ships at all for the Brits anymore, which means the French can actually eventually achieve parity, I guess. We've repaired everything. Got Russians to build still. They don't have big build. And they're going to be falling back to defend Russia and also to support Prussia if need be. And Bagration was unable to get himself completely rallied, so I'm having to keep additional forces kind of surrounding him to protect him, putting more risk on the Russian forces in general. Austria, actually, things are worse than I thought. They have to suffer as well. So this turn, they didn't get a turn, and it wouldn't have mattered because there are no units there. Next turn, they'll be in the neutrals turn, which is before the pro-French. They won't get any production then because, again, these are still occupied by the French. The way this is all set up, the French don't leave those capitals until the turn after they're done being conquered. I'm not entirely sure of like whether they get their production, because if they were allied, they could be in the same space. They're not allowed to be in the same space when they're neutral, though. So I feel like they're still somewhat conquered at this point. Anyway, that's the end of the turn. I don't know if this is a time to load up. We'd be looking at May 1806, except I think I did one relatively early. Like something feels like it's right at this point because Austria's fallen. But yeah, let's load it up. It's a Friday. I still haven't made my mind up whether or not I'm going dancing. It feels cold in here. That I don't know if that's a positive or a negative.